tonight. I want to introduce you to Dan Airola. He's a wildlife biologist and ornithologist, and he's worked for over 40 years on bird conservation. And so I'm going to introduce Dan tonight. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay out there?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, good. So tonight I'm going to be talking on the status and conservation of the purple martin in Northern California. I will focus in on my main study area, which has been in Sacramento toward the end of the program. I forgot to ask how long you expect the presentation to be, because I can be flexible. I think I will probably run around 30 to 40 minutes, if that's okay. But tell me otherwise, Mary, if necessary.
That sounds like a good amount of time.
All right. Well, if you get bored or it sounds bad, just shut me down anytime. So I thought I would start by giving you a little bit of my background. I am a wildlife biologist, officially certified by the Wildlife Society. I worked for many years as an environmental consultant and also for the Forest Service. Currently, I am retired and am an independent researcher and conservation planner. I've been working on birds and natural resource conservation in Northern California. I kind of hate to admit it, but for 43 years now. And I began working on purple martins in 1991. That doesn't seem like such a long time ago for a lot of you, but some of the audiences I talk to, they really go, whoa. But I've been working extensively with martins throughout Northern California at various times, especially with nest boxes and status assessment. And then I've done a limited amount of work in Arizona, Washington, and the Eastern US on purple martins as well. I also do work on tricolored blackbirds, yellow-billed magpies, ospreys, a number of species that are at risk. And I might mention I'm the editor of Central Valley Birds, which is the little ornithological journal published by the Central Valley Bird Club. And if you aren't a member of the Bird Club, please join, and you'll get our nice little journal on local birds. So let me just start out with a little introduction to purple martins. They are the largest North American swallow. They're abundant and well studied in Eastern North America, but much less common in the West. They are a cavity nester, and so they are susceptible to nest site competition from non-native species, in particular the European starling and house sparrow. They nest colonially, which has some interesting ramifications in terms of management and censusing and such. Of course, they are an aerial insectivore. All of their food is caught in the air on the wing, and that leads to some issues with respect to food supply that we'll talk about later. Another just sort of fun fact is that in martins, like in orioles and a few other species, you have delayed adult plumage acquired by the male. The first year birds that come back, in their as 1-year-olds look superficially like females. They don't get the full blue-black plumage of a male until their second year. This is a subadult male here at the bottom, and the telltale you can see is size, behavior, but in particular, they often have a strong purple plumage around the head, and oftentimes some odd random purple feathers in the breast and belly. So this is the distribution of purple martins in North America from eBird records. So this would be the breeding distribution and abundance. And you can see that the species is locally abundant around the Great Lakes, along the Atlantic seacoast, in particular in Texas, Louisiana, Missouri, the South, and then much more scattered distribution with the bulk of the population along the coast from Central California north into British Columbia. When you look at this map, basically ignore all of the light purple here, because those are irregular sightings. And the real distribution is based on the darker purple, which I'll show you in another map in a minute. The martin has 3 different subspecies that are recognized that are quite distinct in certain regards. So the eastern martin breeds in eastern North America. It winters in the Amazon, and its status is abundant, but it is declining. The population size is about 12 million last estimated for eastern martins. I should note too, they nest entirely, the eastern population nests 100% in man-made supplied housing. It's lost the ability or the tradition of nesting in woodpecker holes and other sites like that. The desert or southwestern martin is associated with saguaro cactus in the Sonoran Desert. We don't know the winter range, but studies are beginning to use satellite tracking to identify that. The status is really not very well known, but it appears to be moderately abundant. Although, of course, there's decline in habitat as urban areas expand into the Sonoran Desert. There's a large study going on now with Tucson Audubon looking at the population around the Tucson area. And then finally, our birds are the western martins, which is Progne subis arboricola or arboricola, as some people say. And they occur within the Pacific and montane West. So from the Rockies west, they winter in a different location than the eastern martins along the Atlantic coast of Brazil, which is a highly threatened ecosystem. And their population status is low and declining or stable in certain areas of their range. So this shows you the geographic range of the western purple martin. So in the Rockies, the Great Basin region in Utah, over into British Columbia, south into the mountainous areas, the pine forests of Baja California. This down here would be the Sonoran martins, and the eastern martins extend. This is the Continental Divide through here, and all of this are eastern martins. So the comparisons, I mentioned a little bit of this, but many people, when they think of purple martins, they think of the eastern martins using the houses and thinking that they're pretty abundant. So the differences are, one, they're genetically distinct. The calculations from comparison of DNA shows that these populations were separated about 200,000 years ago. There's still some interchange, but they're distinct. As I've mentioned, they're much less abundant. The entire population, we estimate, of the western purple martin is about 7,000 individuals versus 12 million at last estimate for the eastern martin. The plumage in the western martin is lighter in the female and in the first-year male. So if you look at Sibley or other field guides, you'll see birds that generally look darker than our birds do, unless they show you the western martin. Our birds are larger, not by too much, maybe about 5% larger. They use different nest sites. We don't have any, with the exception of one guy who trained his birds in Oregon, there's no use of apartment-style nest boxes by the western martin. They are using a wide variety of sites, which I'll show you in a minute here. If you want to look at the types of sites that are used within various parts of the western martin's range, you'll notice British Columbia almost completely lost its population, and they brought it back with nest boxes to a remarkable degree, from about 30 individuals to about 6,000 now. They are 100% in nest boxes. Washington, it's about 90% nest boxes. Oregon, it's about 50-50. In California, we have only 2 sites that are known to be where nest boxes are being used by martins. Otherwise, they're mostly using snags or other sites, bridges, utility poles, which are really basically snags, and a few other sites. And in the rest of the western states, the Rockies and the Great Basin, it's pretty much 100% snags. So this just shows you the range of nesting conditions. On the left here, I might mention for local interest, this is Asher Perla from Oregon House, and he's put up these boxes last year to try to attract birds to use them that are in utility poles where they are susceptible to starling competition. And we can control that competition by sizing the entrance hole on these boxes. So the goal is to try to get them to shift over into boxes. He made the boxes, put them up himself. You know, he's 14, right? And he hasn't gotten use yet, but I think the prospects are good that we may get a population. And this area is very unusual to have birds nesting at this elevation in this type of habitat and to not have been run out already by starlings. So we're hoping we can keep that population there in Yuba County. Let's talk a little question. Yeah.
Do you have, are you going to have a picture somewhere in there with the dimensions, or there was a question about the size of the entrance for the nest boxes.
I have we don't really have as good a plans as I would like. Someday I need to just sit down and draw them up. But the idea is that the entrance, the height of the entrance, and I'm going from memory here, which is very dangerous for me, so I won't give you a number, but the height has to be very specific in that the breastbone of a starling is more extensive and it won't be able to fit within a hole that I think is like 1 5/8. But again, don't quote me on it. Martins can get in it, but starlings cannot. So it's a way to exclude them as long as the woodpeckers don't open the hole up further on you. So we can get you plans if you are interested. My friend in Washington, who's helped me in California putting up boxes, is a carpenter and an expert and has worked with birds in boxes for many, many years. So in California, purple martins were once considered locally common throughout the state, except in deserts and high mountain regions. And from that, the range expanded as the birds learned to colonize buildings. And I'll show you some of these buildings later when we get to talk about Sacramento. And, you know, they were common throughout the Central Valley, for example. They lived in Oroville. I think they were in Chico. They were in Auburn, Colusa. All the valley towns had purple martin populations at one time. But in the 1960s and early 70s, the European starling arrived, which is, of course, a cavity nester, non-native bird, very aggressive, and it basically eliminated martins from all areas except the sites in Sacramento where the birds learned to use bridges. And I'll talk in detail about that in a little while. So now